Next.
Hello. Okay. I'm not a surveyor. I'm actually a planner, and in the firm I work for, we sub all of our surveying out, and we have offices all over the United States, and I consider that to be a positive for y'all because you have the knowledge, and we're a positive for you because we can provide you with the GIS experience, whatever kind of other planning. So I mean, when you kind of sound like your limitations to your success as a business is your GIS in some areas, or our limitations is your experience. So maybe the creativity of maybe getting with these municipalities because they are digitizing all their information. I know Tallahassee just did a sidewalk inventory using Google Maps, and that's disturbing even as a planner to see that. So I mean, maybe going out and getting creative, and if GIS is your limitation, maybe going to them and providing them with your professional services, and they maybe coming to, not to market myself, but to bigger firms that can provide you with the illustration and the actual data collection organization aspect. So I don't think there's any limitations here, especially at this conference.
Comments?
I think it's exactly what I was saying earlier, and that's taking our strengths and marrying them with your strengths. And then together, let's go get the work that makes us both proud. And that's really what we do all the time. A good company will always take what it can do well and find somebody that can complement their strengths and go after something brand new, totally different, bigger, larger, more sophisticated, more profitable, and get it done as a team. And it works out for the best. We all have a set of expertise. Every firm does. Even a general engineering or general surveying firm has an expertise in boundary, has an expertise in residential, has an expertise in construction staking. Capitalize on that strength. Go find somebody who doesn't have it and market it to them, and vice versa. It works out very well.
Next.
My question is along the same sort of line as what she was talking about. I'm a licensed land surveyor, and so is my business partner. Generally, we work in the consulting world where we're working as sub-consultants to an engineering firm or directly for an agency. But those agencies and those companies are run by PEs. And this seems to be the problem, at least in our world that we work in. We can't get past the PE to try to introduce the idea of managing spatial data using GIS. And that seems to be the problem in our world anyway. And I was just wondering if, Joe, if you could maybe get a show of hands, how many PEs are actually at this summit, and could we get maybe some response from those folks?
How many PEs in the room? It's kind of interesting, this comment. I don't know if you all heard the comment. Did you all hear it? Okay. Just paraphrasing, that many people who are in the surveying profession tend to work in companies run by PEs, and that PEs tend to throttle the use of GIS, if I'm saying it correctly, because they don't understand its potential. I'll just say that there is a flip side that I have observed, and obviously it's not your experience, but I talk to a lot of engineers, civil engineers, and what I'm finding is that a lot of civil engineers, even though there's very few courses in GIS being taught in civil engineering, that there's a huge number of civil engineering firms now incorporating GIS into their workflow. So there is a flip side to that, and when I hear those stories about engineers incorporating GIS into their workflow, I keep thinking, well, they are a little bit less of a natural than surveyors to incorporate GIS into the workflow, so what's wrong with this picture? So you can respond to either side.
Well, on both ends, I guess. I think what you're experiencing in many instances is a case of what I would call the middle manager syndrome. Many times middle managers, and I have those in my own firm, who like to say no. They do. They don't want to be disrupted. They have their life is planned for them, especially engineers, all due respect, because, by the way, you can tell an extroverted engineer? He's looking at your shoes instead of his own when he's talking to you. My engineers hate when I tell that joke, sorry. But a lot of times you have somebody in a middle sense that you happen to be working for as a sub-consultant, and they really don't want to be bothered with that broad vision. So what you have to do is find somebody higher. Go up in their firm and find somebody higher. If you've hit the top of their firm and you're working with the owner or the principal, go talk to the owner of the project and say, I can do this better for you, or we can do this better for you if we're allowed to do this. Never be satisfied unless it's going to sacrifice your relationship with that particular consultant. That's your call. But always have an opportunity to go up always go up until you get to the owner of the project who says, I'm not interested in paying for it or whatever. He might say, gosh, it's like a great idea, let's do it.
Yeah, running out of time, so Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to go back and follow up on Mr. Van Sickle's comment, because I see the GIS survey landscape much as he does, that this giant disconnect people allude to isn't really there. So what I'd really like to know is anybody actively going out pursuing the concept of research to actually try to quantify where these disconnects are and where these opportunities are? Or any organization, feel free to jump in.
I can
Okay.
I can answer to that. Josh Greenfeld has done a study that maybe a number of you have seen, where he went to all of the state surveying societies, and he had a number of questions, and it had to deal with what their involvement was inside their states with GIS, and questions like, does the state have a GIS-type forum, a state mapping advisory committee? Do the state surveying societies have GIS committees somehow? Is there some type of legislation? What is that, et cetera? So there has been some study work done and some follow-up on that. And actually what I think we've seen is, it's disheartening to say that a lot of surveyors have not chosen to be part of what's happening inside their states or their regions when it comes to GIS policy making, et cetera, type of thing.
Next.
Hope that helps.
Ronnie?
Yes, I'm going to pose the question a little different. We've talked about education around, and the question came around, what can the education system do for the professions, both surveyors and GIS? And that's not really the question, because a lot of the universities have changed, and there are no longer surveying programs, there are geomatic programs. And when you come out of the geomatics program, you can either go into the GIS realm, or you can go into the surveying, or you can become both. The question is, what can we do as a profession to get more students into the education program? That's the problem. It's not what the education system can do, but what we can do to get more people into it. Maybe address that.
Well, I think the answer to that is right back to what Bill Coleman was asking about earlier, and that is changing the consciousness level among the general public. Not just young people, but young people's parents and young people's teachers. And that's a pretty massive effort, considering where we are and where we allow ourselves to be. So it's clear that's what has to happen. The question becomes, how do we make it happen? And my answer to that is, we won't make it happen unless we do it collectively as a whole group of people, so we have the resources to make it happen.
And I think it has to go on different fronts, Ronnie. I think that, as you know, being involved at the national, with a partnership with NCWS, a licensing organization, we developed a speakers package for kids, developed by a professional company, to go to schools and be able to communicate with students at their level and talk about the profession of surveying, or the geomatics profession, and the benefits. And that was done. It's very well done. It's available to anybody. It's not available just for members. It's on the website at acsm.net. It's a great program. If you do any kind of work in the school systems, take a look at it and see if you can't get some good feedback or get some pieces of it. It's an awesome piece. NSP has developed the TrigStar program. The TrigStar program, which is across the country a success, an absolute success, has been a wonderful program of introducing surveying to students. I think it's a great thing. Washington State is doing it with educators. I can't remember the individual in charge of it, but they'll bring educators into their state organization with some grant dollars. They go through a summer camp kind of a program and get the educators enthused about it. At the middle school level, what a place to hit students at the middle school. That's the place to introduce surveying to and GIS and photogrammetry and anything. Middle school students are a great place to start.
Final question.
I had a